Shalom everyone, and this week we study Parashat BeHar BeHukotai, the last two parashot of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. And we can find it in chapter 25, verse 1 in Leviticus. That's where it starts till the end of the book. Now, the name of the parasha, BeHar, BeHar Sinai, and it speaks about the major topic for Parashat BeHar is about the seventh year, the Jubilee, the 50th year, the cycles of using the land, uh, which is brought over here in a very unique way. We will see that because kind of we have over here a very important theme that we can trace, like usually, most of the parashot are not standing alone. We can see the same theme repeating for a few weeks, usually over the whole month, because it's all aligned with the tikkun that we all have to go through, which means the opportunities that open for us above and below, because there's nothing that happens by mistake, and everything happens according to a plan. So here, when we have the Torah explaining the very, very unique economic system that the Torah created in the Holy Land, in the Promised Land. And the system is like this. First of all, we mentioned last week, and that is not the first time, you have it on Parashat Yitro, Mount Sinai Revelation, on the two tablets, Shabbat, which means your time is not exactly for you to use as you wish, because there is a Shabbat. Every seventh day, you're not working. That's it. You're in the middle of a project, you're in the middle of building a house, a bridge, doesn't matter. You're in the middle of a business, you didn't finish the deal, Shabbat comes in, everything comes to a halt, you let go of it, you go back to it after Shabbat. Okay? A very unique system that was introduced to a world without for us, it's very common, every human society must have a day off once a week. And today you have even 2 days off for a lot of people, 3 days off. And the fertility, productivity is higher. But the heart, greed are telling us what? That if you work less, you make less money. Your business is going to be less. So we have this amazing, powerful experiment. While you have first the Jews, the Israelites, they keep the Shabbat, and you will think that according to the laws of survival of the fittest, because they work less than others, they're supposed to make less money, they're going to be less competitive, and therefore they're going to be left behind. The opposite. The opposite history shows that although Jews were a minority wherever they were, and so they were in where the majority was in the upper hand, still the Jews made more money. Okay, how could that? And finally, most of the world follows the rules of the Torah to have at least one day off from work. And you see today, research is showing productivity level is rising. What does it mean? It means that what is rational, intuitive right does not really matter. It does not have giving the guarantee that this is right. So a lot of things that we think that this is rational and that should be right along thousands of years doesn't work. So here comes the Torah and brings a more daring social idea. Every family gets a piece of land, equal piece of land according to the size of the family. Now, this is really uh, what we're talking about an economy that is very, we'll say, socialist, which means equal rights and equal parts in the economy. Now, so for 6 years, you work in the land. On the seventh year, like the seventh day, you're not working the land. You cannot plant, you cannot harvest, you cannot do anything in the land, whatever matters with agriculture. You would think that that will destroy the economy. More than that, on the 50th year, Yovel, and that's the source for the English word jubilee, Yovel. Usually the Y changes into a J, like Yerushalayim turns into Jerusalem. Yovel turns into jubilee. So the jubilee is the 50th year. You can read it, chapter 25, Leviticus, verse 11. Yovel hi shnat hamishim. The 50th year is called jubilee, Yovel. לא תזרעו, לא תקצרו את שפיכיה, which means not just at the 49th year, which is the seventh year of the seventh cycle, you're not supposed to touch the land. On the 50th year, you're still not allowed, which means how can economical model like this can work? כי יובל קודש הקודשים. And what happens on that seventh year and the seventh and the 50th year? Not just that you cannot plant and you cannot harvest, everyone can come to your fields and eat whatever they find, including you, but you cannot sell it. Which means if you're hungry, you go to the field, find a vegetable, find some crops, you can take it just for the meal. You cannot merchandise it. Okay, how can you create an economy of that kind? And more than that, when you have the Jubilee coming, if somebody was poor enough so he could not maintain holding on to his ancestors' land and assets, and he sold it on the 50th year, every land goes back to the original family, which means you have like this game of free economy and free whatever, what we call as a capitalist economy. However, you deal the cards again every 50 years, and everybody gets the same cards they had 50 years ago. And what will be the result? You read on chapter 25, ונתנה הארץ פריה, verse 19, and the earth will give its fruit, ואכלתם לשובע, you'll eat till you're satiated, וישבתם לבטח עליה, and you will dwell upon the land in security, which means the same thing like the Shabbat, same thing like another idea. During the last few weeks, we have a lot about love others as you love yourself. Last week and this week also, the idea of charity is very strong. Think about the leap of faith when it comes to charity. How do I know that what I've got will be enough? I have some savings. I don't know, maybe I'll live till 120. And I don't know, maybe I will retire at this age. You understand? There's a kind of, if I calculate everything, I would think that how can I give charity or do the tithing we read last week? How can I do that if I don't know how much I need till it has enough? How many people they have billions and they don't ever think it's enough. Why? How do I know? Maybe there's going to be a drought, economical disaster, uh, stagnation, inflation. I'm going to lose. Never happened in history, happened a lot. A lot of people think, oh, I have enough. Then the next day, no, I don't have enough. How would that happen? And we have, so how can I give? Maybe this amount that I'm giving for charity, that's exactly the amount that I'm going to be missing next year, 10 years from now, when I'm in need. How can I dare give it? Okay, I'm going to give it on account of my future, my children's future, my family's future. That if you try to rational everything, uh, no charity, no giving, no tithing, no Shabbat, no sabbatical, nothing. You work and you work and you work like until you drop. But here the Torah is giving an oath, a commitment. You'll do that. The earth will give its fruit. You will eat. You'll be satiated, and you will sit. Uh, you will dwell securely on the land. Amazing. Which means the idea that we repeat here again and again and again is the idea that we spoke about last week, and I need to repeat it again. We were created as creatures of desire. We humans, our main goal in life, as the Kabbalists are teaching us, God the Almighty is the endless flow of bliss and pleasure. However, without us wanting that pleasure, how can the Creator share it with us? Therefore, we are creatures of desire. We have needs, and we were programmed for that purpose. And the greatest thing a human being can do is to enjoy and have pleasure. Why? This is the highest level of fulfilling God's will. However, there's a little problem. The problem is like this. When we are limited, what does it mean limited? When I want money, pleasure, safety, love, whatever, and I want it just for myself, there's a flaw in the problem, in the issue, in the equation. God Almighty, the Creator, is infinite light. We are finite desires. That's exactly as Rabbi Ashlag teaches the two exact opposites in the creation. On one hand, infinite giving. On the other hand, finite receiving. Because there is the law of affinity, the similarities attract. Um, Human desire and God's bliss are the two farthest opposites of the creation. Can they join together? Can they have any conversation, communication? Of course not. They're the total opposite. Total opposite, it's like water and oil. They can't talk to each other. Okay? This is like we are talking about the opposites. And therefore, the only way to bridge it is to create generosity, chesed, grace, loving kindness. That power that the Torah has brought to the world. Every human being, and we have to remember, every human being till Abraham, the main idea is the world was divided between the dwellers of the heavens. There was in every human society, there was a religion with stories about the gods in heaven. They were the creatures of the heavens and the creatures of the earth. Humans were mortals, no rights, no right for happiness, no right for anything. Okay? And therefore, most humans were enslaved, either enslaved officially, which means have no rights whatsoever, being property, or enslaved unofficially, being um, basically, uh, what's the word? Subjects, not citizens, of their whatever kingdom they lived in, which means still the king could take whatever he wanted because he owned everything. Now comes an idea that humanity, that human beings were created by the Almighty to serve the Almighty. And how do you serve the Almighty? When you receive His pleasure, when you receive His bliss, which means you really want to worship the Creator. You're not supposed to sacrifice whatever is dear to you. You're supposed to raise yourself, connect to the divine, and merge the divine and the mundane, the heaven and the earth. Very evolutionary. The idea came with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. The idea came again with much bigger scale on Mount Sinai. Still, most people have hardship with this idea. Most people hardship to understand. Not talking about accept, understand. Most people are still subjects, are still slaves. Therefore, we see people enslave themselves voluntarily, become victims, become people that bring sacrifices, which means I am not one of the biggest corrections, tikkunim, learning of every human being, I deserve to be enlightened. Now, the name of the parasha, BeHar, Sinai, at Mount Sinai. And the scholars are asking, all the commentators, why do we have to mention Mount Sinai? All the whole Torah was given on Mount Sinai. Why do we have to mention Mount Sinai with this mitzvah of the seventh year and the 50th year, the Jubilee, Shnat Shemitah? Now we have to understand that the word for the seventh year, Shemitah, Shemitah in Hebrew is a verb that means to let go. You're holding on, you have a grip. Lishmot means let go, let it free. Okay? Which basically that's the idea. And the Torah emphasizes that really clearly with very simple words that even in today Hebrew language, the biblical language is sometimes kind of heavy. And you have in chapter 25, verse 20, "V'chi tomu ma nochal b'shana shvit." And if you ask, "Ma nochal b'shana shvit," what are we going to eat on the seventh year? Hello Nizra, we cannot plant. V'lo ne'esof et tvuatenu, we cannot collect the harvest. Verse 21. It was a very simple question. If I cannot work in the fields, how am I going to survive the seventh year? And the answer is, verse 21, "Vetziviti et birchati lachem b'shana hashishit." And I will order my blessing to you over the sixth year. "Ve'asat et hatvuah l'shalosh hashanim." And the earth is going to yield harvest for 3 years. "Uzratem et hashana hashminit v'achaltem min hatvuah yashar." Why? Because you have to eat for the sixth year, for the seventh year, and for the eighth year. Till the end of the eighth year, you'll have already the harvest of the eighth year. And if you have a jubilee, then we're talking you have to wait till the ninth year. Ad hashana hatshit ad bevot tvuata. Verse 22. Very simple. Very simple. Somehow, if we look again about the survival of the fittest, the Israelites that kept those laws for about 1,500 years living on their land since Joshua brought the Israelites to the land of Israel, all the way till the second temple was destroyed and then the whole system has been destroyed. Uh, we're talking about around 1,500 years. And and we look about the results, we built Jerusalem, we built the temple. Later on, the richness, if you talk about the time of the end of the Second Temple period, about the huge uh, creativity of King Herod and his followers, and even and also the Hashmonaim before him. When you look about the buildings of Jerusalem and the temple, and Caesarea and Tiberias, and you can till today you can see the result of the richness. You know, it worked. It worked. So what? So we go back to the idea. Yes, we're here to receive. However, receiving is illegal cosmically as a mean to achieve fulfillment. Why? Fulfillment comes from the bliss that is coming from the infinite light of the Creator. However, when we desire that fulfillment, this is finite. Similarities attract. This is not similar. This is exactly the opposite. Okay? So, how can we bridge between the infinite bliss of the Creator and the finite desire of myself? Two ways. One is to understand that we humans, we live in two-dimensional universe. We have the spiritual, metaphysical dimension beyond the five senses, and we have the physical dimension. These two dimensions, they need each other in order to create, as we spoke about it last week, peace and harmony, shalom, completion and harmony. How can that be created? Since the Torah in these two parashot speaks about human consciousness, human perception, human idea, what we know today about the uncertainty principle that says the way you measure your reality, the way your reality becomes, which means if you look at reality only from a physical, mundane perspective, like it's being taught in most schools, like it's being taught in the academy, which means, all the stuff about metaphysics, this is religion, this has nothing to do with science. It's not scientific. So, what is it? Oh, there's only physicality. That's it. What you see is what you get. However, science thought, and that's how it's declared in the academy. There was a war about it. There was a debate. The debate is over. Science won. What does mean science won? There's no spiritual metaphysical dimension. So my question is like this. So why is it that there's so many, the most popular books and movies have somehow a metaphysical dimension? Okay? Why is it? People are hungry. People are in need. Also, in religion, during the last few centuries, religion did, the biggest religions tried, especially the Abrahamic religions, tried to disconnect metaphysical ideas from religious ritual. It's only physical. It's only tradition. God said we have to do this and this. Why? Don't ask questions. Okay? And here comes the Zohar. And we are celebrating this week, in fact, like Monday night, tomorrow night, Lag BaOmer, the holiday of the Zohar. That's holiday of the passing of Rabbi Shimon, that he, on the day of his passing, revealed to the world what is called the Idra Zuta, one of the most important texts in the Zohar itself. And then when he finished dictating it, he simply took off. That's an exit. Which means, if there's a way to leave this world, that's the respectable way to leave. So the Zohar says as follows, and I'm reading from the Zohar verse 6, Parashat BeHar, in Rabbi Ashлаг's commentary Hasulam. Tu patach Rabbi Elazar. Also, Rabbi Elazar opened. And he's quoting from our Parashah. No, that's from Parashat Mishpatim. כי תקנה עבד עברי 6 שנים יעבוד. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he will work 6 years, and on the 7th he will come out free. בגין תאכל בר ישראל יתגזר, let's continue, יתלי נייך בשמיטה, דהה דילי ההוא שמיטה לנייך בי, ודע יקרי שבת הארץ, ודע יחרו יתבע, נייך בה, כמה דשבת נייך הוא דחולה, הכינם משמיטה נייך דחולה, נייך הוא דרוחה וגופה. These are the Aramaic words of the Zohar. And we are talking about rest. Shabbat is for rest. The 7th year is for rest. The Jubilee is for rest. Everybody who's rest feels the rest? No. We know a lot of people, when they're resting, they're the most nervous. So what is rest? So we have to redefine the idea what rest is about. You can have for Shabbat dozens of guests, even hundreds of guests. You feed them the whole Shabbat, you serve them the whole Shabbat, and that's considered resting. Physically, your body, I remember Shabbatot, dealing with the whole communities and working hard on Shabbat, and by the end of Shabbat, I was feeling like I was beaten up with a baseball bat, like hard, really the whole Shabbat. And well, my body was sore, okay? But I rested on Shabbat. What does it mean, rest? The rest is not sitting and doing nothing. Maybe reading a book. Okay, no. The rest is about something else. The Zohar redefines the idea of rest. Maybe that will help us to understand, some people take a vacation. Does that mean that they come back home rested? No guarantee. Some people, they don't work, which means they retired early, they have enough money, they don't have to work. For the rest of their lives, they have enough money that they cannot even spend it. Okay? So the rest of the whole day, they don't feel rest. They feel upset, they feel uptight. I know personally so many people like this. Unfortunately. What a shame. And the Zohar continues to explain, what does it mean, rest? Rest is about feeling free, freedom, real liberty. From what? Min haklipot, from the klipot, from the shells. Klipot means shells, which means when we generate negativity, which means we have hopes, we have desires, we have plans, and we mess them up because we take them selfishly, egotistically. And what happens when the infinite light meets a selfish desire? High and by. Basically, the same as a short circuit in electricity. Infinite power is being drawn down, and then the system shuts down abruptly, and the residue of pain is really hard. Okay? That's what klipot are about. When you have klipot, you are blocked. You are stuck. You don't know what makes you stuck. But these are klipot. It's the residue of the short circuits of that you created, past life, this lifetime, and so on. How do you remove those shells? You need real true freedom, and real true freedom from the klipot. This is the only way you can get rested. Again, somebody is resting. He has enough money. He lives in a secure place. He's upset all the time. What makes him upset? Why cannot he feel complete? Klipot. Those are the negativities we generate when we react selfishly to whatever happens around us. On Shabbat, on Shemitah, on the Yovel, there is rest from the judgments. Even though a person is full of negativity, he can have rest from the judgments on Shabbat. Because what happens on Shabbat? We continue, verse 7. Bo'eh. And that also meets the criteria of the seventh year. Hey, היא מנוחה של העליונים והתחתונים. The Hebrew letter Hey, which appears in the Tetragrammaton, the name of God, twice, one representing Bina, Olam Bria, and the other one which is the spiritual world beyond, and the other one represent this physical world. This is the lower Hey, the last Hey, and that's Malchut. On Shabbat, what happens is that if we are aware of it, of the Shabbat frequency that is available, you can journey all the way to a frequency in which everything is complete, everything is full. That's why we bless each other on Shabbat. Shabbat, Shalom. What is Shalom? When everything is complete. When the physicality and the spirituality, all of those realities, the above and below, the physical and the metaphysical, all unite to become really a whole. Shalom. Shalem, shalom, shalom. Shalem is a whole, shalom is peace. Really means when everything is it feels at whole, everything is at rest. So how do we have that kind of rest? And the answer, Rabbi Ashlag adds, Hamochin de'arat chokhmah, those aspects of awareness of the spiritual, godly light called chokhmah, mevi menucha, that brings rest. Which means if you just sit there, even lie there, or walk around and you think you're resting, you're not really resting. To be restful, to be rested, you need to connect to the mochin, to the spiritual lights from above. Only when that spiritual light fulfills you, only then you feel like a whole, complete, restful. Only those lights bring rest. וכן ההארה ממטה למעלה, יסוד מנוחה. And that's also the illumination from below to above. What do you mean below to above? The light comes from above to below. Yes. However, when we receive any kind of light, any kind of pleasure, and we make sure not to be the final station of that light, and we make sure you take that light and you shine it, project it to others. If you feel good, make sure others get some of that good. When you do that, and you really develop genuine, caring, genuine giving, genuine charitable thinking. And what are kind of a charitable thinking? Thinking that the way to connect to the spiritual, metaphysical uh, bliss, that is the only way to be fulfilled, is to build that vessel of giving, being there for someone else. You know, there are many ways to give. Sometimes you give a lot in your job. Most of the times, what do you do at your job? You give service to someone else. But do you give it grumpy and with always a complaint that you're a victim and they never pay you enough? Or do you give it just with a purpose that whatever you gave, whatever you created, will bring light to the people that bought it from you? When you really have that genuine intention, we'll see how that manifests. But first of all, you generate what is called returning light, or choser. Returning light, when we genuinely really care to give and to share with somebody else, we create a, a whole system of returning lights, and those returning lights become vessels to hold on to the original illumination, the original light. Okay, let's make it clear. Rationality is telling us the more I want, the more I get. Experience teaches us, however, there are people with huge desire to receive, and they achieve huge goals and manifest them. When you come to know them personally, deep, you realize the fact that they own a whole city, big city, that they own a lot of stores and factories and whatever you just name it, and private jets and so on and so forth. They still feel not complete. Why? Because when you have only the physical aspect of fortune, just the body, you have only the outer shell, but the inner light is not revealed to you. In order to be complete, okay, in order to have shalom, you need to be able to communicate twice, once with the metaphysical dimension of our reality, and then you generate or choser, returning light, by making sure that in every opportunity, God is present. Because that opportunity, whatever, it doesn't matter, whatever you do, you give charity, you serve your family, whatever you do, God is present everywhere in every action. Now, the question is, would you be able to tap into that godliness? How do you tap into it? When you think about how can I be the light of the event? When you do that, and you really create that caring by physical action, by contemplation, and you really want the others to be fulfilled and enlightened as you basically create shalom. You make peace between the upper world and the lower world. The upper world is not in peace usually because the lower world cannot receive the infinite light because it doesn't know how to do it. The lower world is usually not in peace because the lower world, most people, they are into this concept that the more you want, the more you get. Both do not work. So what does work? When you realize there are these two universes, one is the physical, sensual world, and one is the spiritual dimension, unseen dimension. They touch each other. They are intertwined with each other. However, whoever creates the union between the two, the soul and the body, is the human mind. When we think, when we speak about the spiritual dimensions, and when we connect them with the physical, we make a union. We mate the spiritual dimension with the physical dimension. The result is rest. When you feel really rest, when you're spiritually, truly fulfilled. ונודע שמקור גילוי החוכמה בה"א עליונה, דהוויה של סוד בינה. Where does that light reveal itself? It comes down the tree of life, and when it reveals itself in Bina, okay, when it reveals itself first, and then it comes down to the world we can perceive, that light, when it reaches us, it gives us a different kind of fulfillment. It's like, sometimes there's a very strong rain, and it rains so much, and the end of the rain, usually in the desert, the earth is still dry. Why? Because the earth is so compacted and so dry, it cannot absorb the rain, so the water flow over the soil. And because it's a desert, there's nothing to stop it. So you have floods. We need to create a vessel that will absorb the light. And the vessel to absorb the light is the power of returning light, which means when we, instead of focusing on receiving, we focus on how we can be of help to others. That changes the direction, because when direct light is when we think about how do I get from outside to within. Returning light is when I say all of that light that I want to receive, first I have to make others happy if I want to be happy. So the seventh year is Sfirat Malchut in the Tree of Life. Sfirat Malchut is represented with the Hebrew letter Hey. So when we meditate upon the tetragrammaton, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, from above to below, a very important meditation, very, very important. We train ourselves that everything we do is about one thing, drawing the light of the creation from above to ourselves so we can share it with others. If I share it with others, what do I get? Here's the catch. That's a paradox. The more you receive, what is more is less. Why? The more you receive for yourself alone, just because you want, that's direct light. The light of the Creator shines at you, fills you up. However, there is what the Zohar is calling the Nahama Dichsufa, which is the shame of receiving free gifts. We were created as a creator, in the image of the Creator. Therefore, we cannot receive gifts. We want to make them up. We want to generate them. So when we do that, we create returning light. Returning light is when we make the effort to make other people happy. That energy, returning light, is the only light that stays. That light stays because I created it. And because I created it, it absorbs the other light, the direct light, the original core of the light. And when we receive it, that stays forever. Stays forever. Even when a person passes on, Those lights of returning light, those vessels that he corrected with the returning light, stay with his soul. They continue to follow us lifetime after lifetime. Many times they help us. Finally, only when we finish our tikkun, what I mean finishing our tikkun, when we turn all the vessels in our soul, it's modular, we turn them into sharing. And when we turn them into sharing, we create a lasting vessel. That vessel is accumulative. It accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. And when we leave the universe after 120, what do we take with us? We take with us all those angels that were created from our sharing. Those angels become the vessel that holds the light of freedom, the light of peace. So who creates the freedom? Who creates the peace? Only we do. God, of course, created everything in the beginning. Everything. Now the question is, how much do you withdraw from the house, from the creation? It's everywhere. Everything thing that we go through, the tiniest and the biggest, all of them, they belong to the network. They belong to an opportunity for us to mate, to unite the upper world and the lower world, the spiritual dimension and the physical one. Now, that brings a very important part of the Zohar. So, who are the people that can achieve freedom? Those people who can be generous. Why? Just think about it simply. If a person cannot afford himself to be kind and gracious towards others, that's a klipa. That person is a slave to his or her fears that maybe tomorrow we don't have enough. And if not tomorrow, the morning out, the day after. So what the Zohar is saying over here, that first of all, every person in his journey must accept the yoke of heavens. What is the yoke of heavens? That you understand, that's verse 10 in the Zohar of Rabbi Ashlag, Hasulam, where he says, we spoke about it before, Ivdu et Hashem b'ira, serve God with awe. What does it mean with awe? With awe, A-W is awareness. What is the awareness? That everything we do is an opportunity to generate a flow of spiritual light. What does that depend on? How do I relate? That's certainly the principle. The way I measure my reality. When I measure my reality, that everything that I do, choose, whatever, is part of my great journey of millennia towards completion. So I look with awe, respect, love, and excitement about every challenge that I face. I know it connects to the great system. We are all like all of humanity, all of us are subcontractors in correcting humanity. When we reach kind of a critical mass of correction, that will bring upon the Messianic era, in which people are really aware, not just one here and one there, that our society in general, today, our societies are all intertwined. Everybody is on the same, not everybody, but most people on the same social networks. So if something happens to me, small or big, all of them are for one purpose. How can I create that force of returning light? I want to receive, I want to be happy. However, I block that desire for a second and I turn it into, you want to be happy, make somebody else happy too. You want to be successful, help somebody else. This is the great idea of the parasha. Now, when you don't have that yoke, when you don't have that commitment, you become a slave to your needs. And we all have needs. A need for security, sexual needs, society, the need for society, the need for family, whatever. We're human beings, we're full of noise of needs. How can I be free from that noise? And the answer is very simple. When I transform the need into sharing, into grace. And therefore, the Zohar continues, Avadim pturim min nochut shamayim. Slaves, and they were slaves today, they're also slaves. They don't think they're slaves, but they are slaves. Legally, you're not a slave. Practically, you are a slave. You're a slave to your duties. You're a slave because you don't enjoy it. You're a slave because you cannot rest, because you're always serving, but with a victim state of mind. What can I do? I have to. If I'm not going to pay my debts, if I'm not going, you, I'll perish. I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your debts. What I'm saying is that everything that we go through is an opportunity to generate the returning light. When we overcome the desire, what about me? And we turn into it, how can I make a difference for them, for him, for her? But when you are a slave, you cannot receive the yoke of heavenly kingdom. And what's the yoke of heavenly kingdom? That everything that happens to us has a purpose. So you're never free of that. And by that, you get the highest level of really true freedom. Because freedom is not the physical idea, nobody tells me what to do. Freedom is about the ability to connect to enlightenment, spiritual enlightenment, metaphysical enlightenment. When I draw the infinite light of the Creator into myself for others, then I can be fulfilled. I can be complete. I can be holy. What's the problem with that? A lot of people are consciously or subconsciously horrified by that idea. They do everything possible to deny the existence of the supernatural, to defy the idea of a God running the show, to defy the idea that you need godliness in order to fulfill yourselves. And therefore, you see that whatever today symbolizes real faith, genuine giving out of faith, arouses around the world hysterical hatred, upset, despise. Why? Because that hits a chord. What is the chord? That the chord that deep inside we know we live in a universe with two dimensions, the metaphysical and the physical, the spiritual and the mundane. And if you really want to be free, you cannot be not religious. I just eat whenever I feel like, whatever I feel like. I'll do all what usually people do without thinking about anything. I don't want any responsibility. What's the result? We see it in Parashat BeHukotai. The curses, the curses. When you're not facing the rules of the game, when we're not aware of how things operate, you're being blocked. not by somebody from above. No evil comes from above, says the sages in the Talmud. Evil does not come from above. Does not. So where is it coming from? When people misuse the opportunities, the light, they deny their responsibility. They want to be free of the yoke of heavenly kingdom. What do I mean, the yoke of heavenly kingdom? That to always be on guard and aware that I have to connect the heaven and the earth in every split second. It can happen. Maybe 2 times a minute, maybe once a day. Depends. Everybody has his own pace. And therefore, when the Zohar is saying, why is it that we, on the seventh year and the Jubilee, not just we do not plant and not harvest the fields, I can take from the field whatever I want for eating for that day. But the neighbors can do that too. The poor people of the community can come and take whatever they find. You leave it? Yeah, but it's mine. No, it's not yours. It's not yours. There's an old story about two farmers arguing. It's the plowing time, and they plow, and they have a big debate about where is the border between their two fields. And they scream and they yell and they argue. And an old wise man is passing by, and he stands, he looks at them, and he tells them in the middle of the heated argument, did you ever think about asking the earth who does it belong to? I said, no, we didn't think about it. We can ask the earth, we cannot hear. I can hear. He kneels down and he whispers to the earth and he puts his ear and he does like this with his head. He nods with his head. So the farmers are very excited. What did the earth tell you? And the wise man said, I asked the earth, who do you belong to? And the earth said, both of them belong to me, because both of them will finally be inside me. So, that's kind of basically, you cannot own earth. What the Torah is saying, the earth belongs to God. He owns the land. He has the deed on the land. How do you know? Because when a human being owns the land, but a human being is mortal, you die. When you die, you take the deed with you? No, it's illegal. There is a rule that somebody has to inherit the land, until the land, use the land, and make profit out of it. Okay? So if it's yours only temporarily, you're leasing the land. You don't own the land. Same thing in Israel right now. Most of the lands belong to the big governmental bodies. That's how it started. When money that was donated from many, many, many Jews around the world was used to buy the land. But the idea was the money was used not for profit, it was used so the Jews can reclaim their stolen indigenous lands that were taken away over 2,000 years of colonialism. First, the Jews lost lands to the Greeks, and they started to build Greek polis cities in the land of Israel. Then every battle against the Romans took another piece of land. First they took Jerusalem, then they took Judea and Benjamin. Then they took parts, and during that they took the coastal plain and the Galilee and so on. Still, only till the Crusaders came and they took everything and killed most of the Jews, and the rest fled away. So it was a long process of colonialism. Now, there was a Jewish institute who said, no, the land belongs to the people. So everybody realized. and you can lease the land for 49 years. After 49 years, you have to renew the lease with the with basically the authorities. It's like you don't own the land, you just lease the land. So a lot of people you walk around in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, other places, people do not own their houses, they lease them. Basically, it's ownership, but legally, it's lease. But you know what? It's the same thing. If you cannot take it with you and it's not eternal, it's a lease. But people are, they say, no, it's my land. Like you can do it whatever you want. Can you put in your will, let's say you have a beautiful apartment in Manhattan, okay? It's in a high rise, it's a penthouse, beautiful, with a beautiful view. And you put in your will, it's mine, so after I die, it becomes my mausoleum. Should become my burial place. Is it legal? I don't think so. So you can't do whatever you want. Okay, so it's not really yours if you cannot do whatever you want. So whatever you name it, it's leased by you. So the Torah makes sure that you realize that on the seventh land, you do not work the land. Why? The owner of the land asks, leave my land, okay, for free on the seventh and the Jubilee. Why? It's my land. To remind you, it's my land. However, there's something into it. When you do that, like Shabbat, something happens in the universe that on Shabbat, on the seventh year, on the year of the Jubilee, like on Shavuot, there's a cosmic transformation. And there's a unity between the upper and the lower worlds. That's why it's Shabbat Shalom. There's a peace, there's a wholeness, because the light comes in, fills up the vessel, and that is real menucha, rest, the true one. There are people who observe Shabbat, so they say, which means they don't work on Shabbat, they don't use electricity on Shabbat, but they're restless the whole Shabbat. They go to the synagogue, they gossip. They're home, they're always talking about business or about stuff, and you see they're not at peace. Why? Because they do not activate that idea that you need to unite with the spiritual dimension. Only that can bring us peace. So those lights that shine on Shabbat, on the seventh year, on the Jubilee, on Shavuot, the 50th day from Passover, all of that. And that, again, what the Zohar is saying on the verse 10 and verse 11, people are fighting, and especially right now. The whole world is going through a transformation that it's the first time it's the whole world. Look, the world did changes in the past. But when there was World War One, they said it's World War One, World War. However, most of the planet was not involved. Most of the planet people did not feel that. Even countries who were part of the war, okay, you didn't feel it everywhere. Oh, there was some economy, but the war, now the war is everywhere. Why? Because the war is about the acknowledgement, and only that will bring peace, the acknowledgement that we must serve the greater purpose. And that war will continue. One, I see it a lot on the social media and in the news, in between the lines. One of the greatest ideas of why Israel upsets the whole world so much. Because whatever happens in Israel is not rational. Not rational. 7.5 million Jews not just survive constant attack of 500 million Arabs, 1.5 billion and maybe 2 billion Muslims, and there's a whole ganging on them of others with all kinds of, we are anti-Zionists. No, we're not anti-Semites. We're just anti-Zionists, anti-colonialists. Doesn't matter. It's all fake. I spoke about it before. You can have huge atrocities of the regime in Iran, massacring its own people, tens of thousands overnight, with brutality unheard of. Nobody cares. One little thing happens in Israel. Wow, the whole world is up. It's not rational. When we learn whatever is rational shows about something much deeper. And the idea, because it is not rational, because Israel is not rational, because Israel is a miracle. I'm not saying Israel is a perfect place, but the idea of the coming back of the Jews to Israel to build a country like the prophet said, okay, against all odds, after the Holocaust, that 1/3 of the world Jewry were exterminated, and still the Jews dared to stand up, create a nation against all odds, and a thriving one that nobody can ignore. That's not, so many nations were created in the middle of the 20th century. You don't hear about them so much as you hear about Israel. Why? The idea is very simple. The idea is you have to realize something irrational is happening. There is the spiritual dimension is pushing on each one of us. That's what the war is about. It happens everywhere. It's unrest. When you're going to have real peace, real rest, only when you realize that you have to accept the yoke of heavens. What's the yoke of heavens? The Zohar explains to bring in the spiritual light in everything you do, because nothing is out of that idea, which means there's no religion and business. Religion, God, and personal, no. According to the Torah, everything is one whole complete system. Whatever you do, personal level, national level, economy, everything is interconnected. We are all part of the same matrix. Being aware of it gives us the chance to achieve real rest and real freedom. Then you can avoid the curses that happen to, irrationally also, to those people who deny their calling. So we finished this week Parashat Vayikra, but the book of Vayikra, which is about the calling. The God is calling each one of us every second. The question is, do we listen? Are we willing to accept the call? And the call said, serve me. Be the vessel, I'll be your light. That's the message of the Zohar of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Good luck to us all. Peace upon all of us.